we're not playing a game of chess. We're playing a game of life. With me and my partner with Fix and Flips, we wrote out a contract, but we both know that we want to continue to work. Like, the contract is a guideline, but we both want to continue to play that game together, even if we need to go back and make modifications to that contract. As long as we agree on it, we can change the rules at any time, because our goal is to continue that relationship, continue that infinite game. Am I playing that infinite game where there's no winners, there's no losers, and the game never ends?
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the BizDad podcast. Today, I am super thrilled to talk to John Laney, a fellow military veteran. So thank you for your service, good sir. I'm looking forward to kind of digging into your background, learning more about your family, your business. I think it's going to be a wonderful conversation. We were connected, as we were talking before the recording, through Stu, we believed, and another solid father who has also been on this podcast. Because if they're on this podcast, they're bound to be solid dads. So that's wonderful to get you on. So if you can, John, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us about your family and tell us about your business.
Yeah, Adam. Hey, thanks for inviting me on. Pleasure to talk. Looking forward to a good chat here. Yeah. So, where do I start? So I got out of the Navy in 2020, 4 years ago, and before I got out of the Navy, I had this vision. I thought, wouldn't it be awesome to be financially independent, like the whole FI thing? And so I worked really hard while I was in the Navy, saved up a bunch of money, bought some houses from Stu and from some other folks, and what do you know? At about the 2020 timeframe, when we were getting out, we with our retirement and a little disability and some other investments that I had and some cash flow, I got the check in the box, the FI check in the box, and we're like, okay, so what do we do? What do we do with this newfound financial freedom? And we had wanted to go overseas for a year or so and volunteer, some meaningful volunteer service. Unfortunately, right when I got out, COVID hit, and nobody was going anywhere in the summer of 2020. So we looked around. We're in San Diego, and we said, well, we can't travel far overseas, but Mexico is only about 15 minutes down the road. And I bet we could probably find something in Mexico that we can go to, and we could serve for a year and have a sabbatical-ish for a year. And that's what we did. We drove down the road 15 minutes, found ourselves a orphanage down here in Mexico, and 1 year down in Mexico turned into 2, turned into 3, turned into 4, and now we are getting ready to head back to Oregon to get plugged into my community, family, community, friends, church, everything that I've missed for the last 25 years being in the Navy. So that's a little bit about me. What did I miss? Family. I've got two great kids, 2 boys, a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old. And man, here's a good one. So part of my financial, the fantasy of financial independence was, wouldn't it be awesome to be able to hang out at home, make breakfast for my boys, do a little work at the kitchen table, and just kind of be around. Well, that was a fantasy, and I found I could get my efficiency went from 90% to about 10% when everybody needed me at all hours of the day at all times. And instead of being viewed as the dad that was always available, I was the dad that was always on my computer and on my phone, because I was around, because I was with my kids, but I was always on my phone. I just took my work back home. And yes, I was available. I had more time for them. But every time they needed me, it was the old, just a second, Otis, as I finished the email and then went and helped them. So instead of being gone like half the day, like most dads are, gone, you're focused at work, and then you come home and you're focused on your kids, I was just like always distracted, always on my computer, always on my phone. And that was not a great first year sabbatical. So yeah, those are my 2 boys. My experience trying to mix dad business and fatherhood business together, and man, I tell you what, worst idea ever to do work at home on the kitchen table when you got 2 boys around.
Yeah,
or a wife that needs a jar opened or an ear to listen to or whatever. You're just
That was
suddenly
very sexist
totally
of you
on
to
the
say that
computer.
your wife needed help with a jar opening.
Yeah,
Jeez.
well,
Yeah.
whatever she needs. Whatever she needs.
No, as it was funny because just last night I was asked to open 2 jars. So,
Okay.
but one by my mom and one by my au pair. I'm like, okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm here for something. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So, but no, I definitely would love to dig into the distraction of the computer. As I work from home, and I warned you before we were on this call. And anybody who's watched this podcast on YouTube, they will have seen my kids because they jump in here all the time and interrupt everything I do. Right, so. I completely understand that feeling, and I think my kids think that I work more than my wife does. My wife is still in the Air Force, and she's gone before they wake up, and she comes home right about dinner time, right? So she's gone like 13 hours a day. And I think they think I work more than her because every time they see me, I'm sitting in front of the computer. But every time they see mom's home and she gets to play and like, oh, she's now in the pool. And I'm finally at that point where I'm like, okay, now I get to do something in the house, to fix something in the house or to do something here while mom gets to play with the kids. And so like the dynamic is so weird to think about how they view what it is. And, and that's something I try to talk to people about all the time is like the things that you do, like the actions you do, the kids are catching on to it, right? Because most things are caught, not taught. So it doesn't matter what you say out of your mouth. It's what they see going on, and they're going to catch all of that. So, I'm starting to go into a thing that I want to talk to you about later. So I'm going to shut up now and ask you another question to get a little bit more background.
I'm going to ask you a question.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm 48, and I have found probably over the last 5 years, it has been so hard to refocus after a distraction. Like I used to be able to kind of multitask and like refocus. Kid would bother me, like refocus, no problem. Now, dude, if I get a distraction, it takes me like if I'm in the middle of an email and I get a kid or whatever, it takes me a significant amount of time to re-spin back up. So I don't know if you've experienced that also.
Mentally, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And it's, and sometimes it's just hearing something outside, right? I may hear the boys get angry at each other for one reason or another. Just an example today that I thought they were angry at each other because the younger boy was crying. And the other one was saying, would you just tell me what happened? So like I thought they were arguing, but what happened is one son headbutted the couch by accident. So he hurt his nose, the bridge of his nose. So he's crying and I'm thinking, so I'm completely interrupted. I stand up, I open the door, boys, come here, and it was unnecessary, but it completely, now I got to sit down. Where was I at? Well, I was in the middle of this email, but now I've got this other, and it just, it's definitely, I'm with you there. It's not easy. And I've talked about it before on this podcast where I need to, and while you were talking, it reminded me that there's a piece of real estate not too far from here that I want to buy that has 2 offices in it so that I can office hack and go and have my own office. Rent out the other office as there's a store downstairs. So I need to really go follow up on that. But anyways, let's learn a little bit more about you. One thing you didn't touch on is your wife. I think Debbie, correct? In 19 years, is that accurate?
19 years, that's right.
All right, fantastic. So wife Debbie, 2 boys, Otis and Thaddeus. That's I look forward to digging into that a little bit more. But before we do that, love to ask about your background, learn a little bit more about what it was like for you growing up. So if you can, tell me a little bit about your dad, kind of what, maybe some of the things that were highlights from you, highlights or lowlights on things that you learned, things that you wish you didn't know, or whatever the case may be. And maybe even tell us about your dad's dad and what your understanding is there.
Yeah. So great. Going back to the memory pool, man. I tell you what, I remember both my dad and my dad's dad as just super hard workers. Super hard workers. There's just the idea of hard work and dedication to your community and to your family, and the idea that your family is bigger than you and your community is bigger than you, and we are doing things not necessarily for ourselves, but we're doing things for those around us. And that when those 2 ideas come in conflict, so am I going to do this for myself or for my family, self or community? That there was always the priority on family, and there was always the priority on community before self. In the Navy, we have a term: you're focused on your ship, then your shipmate, then yourself. They had the civilian version, community, family, self, shipmate, self. But that was very strongly ingrained in me by both my father, Carl Laney, and my grandfather, Eugene Laney.
All right. So when you were growing up with that focus, what did that kind of what did that look like for you as a child, and understanding that, or did you understand that yet as a child? Were you picking up on that already, or is that something you picked up later on in life as you're sitting here now as 48-year-old John, kind of looking back at it?
Yeah, man, I think I'm picking up on it later in life. It's the story that I'm embracing. You know, one thing that's cool about us humans is we can tell ourselves whatever story we want. Like we can tell
Mm-hmm.
ourselves our childhood was terrible. We can tell
Yep.
ourselves our childhood was awesome. Like we can create our story as it's going. And so I think part of it is the story that I'm telling myself. What was the second part of your question?
If what your thoughts were as you were growing up, understanding that, or did you understand that much later on in life?
Yeah, I think it was much later on in life. Did I comprehend that they were teaching me the value of hard work? No, man. I just saw it. I just
Mm-hmm.
saw my old gramps out there, like always working, like helping. Like I remember clearly we bought our house on 58th Street, and my grandfather and my uncles, we all came down and we spent a weekend doing yard work,
Mm-hmm.
pouring mulch and cleaning weeds, all the stuff that you do when you buy a new house. And I remember that commitment to hard work from my parents and grandparents.
Okay. So growing up and you're watching all of that hard work, were you involved in some of that? Well, let's actually just change that. What was that hard work? What did your dad do for a living? What did your grandpa do for a living?
Yeah, my grandfather was a chemical salesman, so he sold chemicals that make plywood. A glue
Okay.
salesman at Ryco Chemical out of Eugene, and then my father was a seminary professor at Western Seminary out of
Okay.
Portland. So I didn't see my dad worked much, but I did see him work when he came home, and I did. I remember many a time we'd go out and chop wood. That's how we heated our house during the
Mm-hmm.
winter. Is
Yeah.
we'd go out in the summer, chop wood, spend a weekend or so chopping a couple cords of wood, take it all in, get it dried, put it in the
Mm-hmm.
house. So just going through that. Our yard. We had both our primary house. We had a pretty large yard. So with the large yard comes a lot of work, and just seeing
That it does.
them out working and doing what needs to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. I those are some of my fondest memories, is going out and doing the things that my dad was doing, just like the hands-on stuff, whether it was working on the car, cutting trees down to go, cut cords of wood at a time in upstate New York. Right. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot I was doing. With the chainsaw, but the axe became my thing, right? Like I wasn't allowed the chainsaw. Dad wouldn't let me do that as a 10-year-old boy, but I wish he did.
Wise.
That was, I don't know. Probably wise. I probably would not have been allowed in the military missing a leg. So, but yeah, that swung that axe around like crazy, just chopping cords of wood at a time. It was ridiculous, but I loved it. I mean, for me as a young boy trying to figure out what kind of person I was, that was a lot of fun to me. So did you have any siblings?
Yeah, I did. I was the oldest of three.
Okay.
So I had
Brothers,
two
sisters?
younger sisters, and
Two younger
two younger sisters that were real close in age to me, and then my younger brother is 10 years, 11 years younger than me.
Wow. Okay. What would you say they would say about their experience with your dad? The oldest tends to have a different perspective than the younger ones.
Yeah, great question. Probably something similar. I would say that. What would they say about that? Man, that's a tough one. Probably something very similar. That I would say. Although looking at it from my perspective, 40 years ago, whatever I say is probably not going to be as accurate as what reality is.
Of course.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even venture a guess. I know that the family and the community, that was something that they would definitely put a priority on the family and the community.
Okay.
We had.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've ever asked that question. It just was intriguing to me.
And community is, I remember we'd pick up an old lady Alta, and she was an old shut in on our way to church. And for years, like we'd pick up this old lady Alta, and just seeing my parents do that, take time out of their Sunday to pick up, drop off an old lady, makes us continue to do that. Makes us kids see that and follow that action, follow that lead.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, because I think that if we are aware of the fact that we are doing those things because that's what we saw, and if we're aware enough to realize that, okay, that means that the things that I'm doing, my kids may one day, when they're 48, be doing those same exact things that they're seeing me do. Because to me, that goes along with the making sure that we're living intentionally, and that we're representing what it means to be a productive member of society intentionally. And if we're not, then we're, they're catching something. They're watching us do something. What is it they're watching us do? Like, what is it that we're laying the path for their future? Are we helping them lay tracks for a really solid future, or are we helping them lay tracks for a dreadful experience that they're going to be smacked in the face with later on in life? Because it can be either one of those. So what did your mom do for a living?
She was a homemaker. Yeah, she took care of us for knuckleheads.
Yeah, that is a phenomenal job that I cannot wait for my wife to enjoy embracing, if that is what she wants to do when she retires next year, which it sounds like. Like we were out, and I was telling you that our anniversary was yesterday. So by the time this comes out, it was months ago. But we were chatting about what does it look like when she retires, and I told her, I said, well, she's like, well, what does it mean to you for me to be, just a great mom hanging around at home? I said, it means whatever you want it to mean. Like, if that's truly what you want to do, then that's what, like, I want you to embrace the fact that you get to be a mom and you get to be present with your kids and not be at work 13 hours a day and not be told by some colonel or some general that you need to do this thing, or, have to worry about on Saturday afternoon, like the general calls and says, hey, I need this thing done by the end of the day. And it's like, no, like, I want you to be like, I want the 9-year-old to call and say, Mommy, I'd love to do this by the end of the day. Like that's where I would love it to be, but, right now, I don't know if you've been seeing any of the drama with that. I wish I'd remember his name, but the Kansas City football kicker, the comments he made at the Catholic school, what is it, a benediction or not benediction? So he did a speech at the Catholic school talking about, and he said he had a whole thing, and there was like a 2-minute thing that like went viral about him basically telling women to get in the kitchen and cook, which is not at all what he said. But he was talking about, hey, like, I want to talk to the women right now, because you've been given these diabolical lies from society telling you about all this stuff. Like, there are many of you that are going to go on to be CEOs and leaders in great companies and do amazing things. But I'm sure a lot of you are really excited. Like, your number one thing you're most excited about is having kids and like getting married and having kids and raising a family. And I want you to, like, if that's your calling to go do that, then do it. Like, don't let the world tell you that you need to go be a CEO. Like, if that's like being a homemaker is an amazing thing. I wanted to stress this now because you just mentioned your mom being the homemaker, and that makes me super thrilled that was able to happen. And a lot of people, of course, are going to make comments about, oh, well, that was back when one job could afford, you could afford to have only one income doing it, et cetera, et cetera. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on at least the concept there. What was your understanding growing up with your mom being the homemaker?
Yeah, dude, I tell you what, some of the most fun that I've had as a dad is opening up our house to kids and friends and taking kids to the movies and being a friend of my kids' friends. And man, it's just I enjoy that so much more than just about anything else I do. I mean, I would love to be in the kitchen cooking. We make homemade pizza. We make just like donuts, homemade fried donuts. Like I enjoy doing that with my kids and my kids' friends just about more than anything else. Like I love it. Like I enjoy it at a strange level. Like I feel like I shouldn't enjoy this so much. It's just so much fun. Like I'm like, is this like, am I doing something wrong here?
Yeah,
yeah, which is kind of a weird feeling. But yeah, man. So I love it. I don't know how my mom experienced it, but I would imagine it's pretty similar. It runs in the family. My grandma was a host. My mom really enjoys kids and really enjoys having people over. They're always having guests over at their house, and I can only imagine that she embraced that for all it was worth. And they made a very conscious decision. I mean, my dad was a seminary professor, and so they didn't make a ton of money. And she made a conscious decision. Do I stay home and do something that gives me incredible meaning and gives my kids a great education in the house, or do I go to work and make a little more money and lose a little bit of meaning? I mean, isn't that the question we all deal with? I mean, your wife's dealing with that too. She made a decision to go into 20 years. Like, it's a decision everybody has to make. No judgment on what you make, but everybody has to make that decision.
Yeah. And I mean, like you and I are still making that decision right now on whether or not, like, do we spend more time with our kids, or do we spend more time trying to build a business? Like, there's, that's a decision we have to make, and one of them is going to suffer, right? Whether it's the time with the kids or the time in the business, and different phases of life, you have to make different decisions. There's going to be a point in life where I have zero desire to keep building a business and be like, no, I totally want to do only being a dad. And there's going to be a point also where I'm like, oh no, the kids are pretty self-sufficient. They're doing their thing. I think I can buckle down and do a bit more in business right now. And that's perfectly fine. And understanding that those are stages of it. But
no, absolutely. And the bummer of it is during those peak times, during the peak career progression times where you're buckling down and working in your business, also the peak times that your kids need you. And I wish that we could, I don't know, I wish that there was a way for our community, our society to leverage that, and maybe that 30-year-old mom or 30-year-old dad, for that matter, could I don't know, work dad hours, mom hours, and then the 35-year or the 40-year-old, the 50-year-old could work grandpa hours, to make it a little bit different, so that we can really embrace parenthood and let and not have to have such a conflict between young children that need mom and dad and and work, and it's right at the same, it's right in your 30s. Bam. So good luck. You figure that out on your next podcast.
Let me know. Yep. I'll see how it goes, or maybe we'll figure it out by the end of this one. We've got a couple to chat, maybe right? So how did the son of a seminary teacher and a homemaker decide to join the military? Where did that kind of come in?
Yeah, I wish I knew, dude. I wish I knew how my personality was formed. And I don't. And I think I've realized that I used to think my dedication and my drive and my business sense was self-generated. Like, oh well, I'm just a hard worker. Like, really? Like, did I just wake up and decide to be a hard worker? I think hard work chose me. I think dedication chose me. Some people it doesn't choose everybody, and I don't know if it was just me deciding, hey, I just want to wake up and be a hard worker and join the military. Like, how did that come? I don't know. I think the military chose me. So I heard about the Air Force Academy. I knew nothing about it in middle school, but I tell you what, it sounded so cool. Oh, an academy? Oh, Air Force? Oh, you must all be pilots. And pilots are pretty cool, and you fly these awesome planes. I want to go to the Air Force Academy. So I didn't know what to do other than study hard. I was from Oregon, so it's not like a big military culture in Oregon. Neither my family had done military, except for grandparents during World War II. So high school came around, and I applied for all the service academies, and I did not get into the Naval Academy. So I took a year off, going to a prep school, and then reapplied again. And what do you know? The next year, I'd got selected. So I think better said, rather than I desired this out of the academy, or I really liked the Navy aspect or this. I think the academy just chose me. And it was I tell you what, it was a great fit. because I'm a rule follower.
Mhm.
I like order. I like structure. I'm a nerd. It was just not a great fit for everybody, but it was a really good fit for me,
Awesome.
and I did okay.
Going through, so I used to be many moons ago a dog handler in the Air Force, right? So I had a bit of a love-hate relationship with EOD folks. And you were an EOD guy. So how did you end up going into EOD? Was that right out of the Naval Academy? You know, you talked about being a pilot and like flying planes and all that, and then you go and become an EOD. So how did that process work?
Yeah, I was interested, just like I was interested in going to the academy because it was tough and hard.
Mm-hmm.
I was interested in SEALs and EOD. So I pursued both of those. I got picked up for EOD, and it was a much better fit for me than if I had gone SEALs. So the Navy knew that I was a much better EOD officer than I would have been a SEAL. So I'm very glad that I did not get selected for my first choice. Yeah. So that's how that's. I wanted to do something tough. I wanted to do. I was young, dumb, and like full of drive,
Mm-hmm.
and just wanted to do the hardest thing I could in my late teens and early 20s, and start the start of my career.
EOD is definitely one of those that are difficult both mentally and physically, and like it's a exhausting career field. One of the things I went back and forth in I think it was the Air Force Times or something. I don't remember where it was, but I was a dog handler, and there was an EOD tech that was writing about Secret Service missions. About how they go and jump on beds and do all the stuff to go prep for people to go through, and I was like, dude, like the dog goes in there and sweeps a bunch of this stuff first and does all these things. So we like did this back and forth in the Air Force Times. It was rather comical. I don't remember if it was in comments. I know he was actually quoted in the thing, and I sent him an email. But it was comical to go back and forth. But once we were overseas, boy, oh boy, best friends. Like, hey, I found a bomb. Good luck, buddy. Like, it's on you now, And like, so there was to me a lot of back and forth I got to enjoy with the EOD folks. Now, you got out 4 years ago. You got retired, right? 4 years
retired,
ago.
Yeah, 20 years.
So 4 years ago you retired, which means your kids were 6 and 9, if my math serves me correctly. So what was life kind of like pre having kids, and then after having kids, dealing with military service? Like how did you kind of feel as you were, things are still going on in wars when you start having kids and stuff's happening. So what were your feelings as you were going through living life single and then married without kids and then married with kids? Talk to me about how that life transition was going on for you while in.
I was blessed, lucky, super fortunate. While I had kids, I deployed once, twice with kids, and that was when they were pretty young. My last 8 years, 6 years or so, I did not deploy. I traveled, but it was like a good, I was gone 2 weeks, come back 2 weeks. So I didn't have that 6 month, 8 month deployment horror hanging over me as a dad. And so I know so many buddies that did just that. Come off an extended deployment, turn around and do it again, and they've got kids, and it's just like makes you sick to your stomach. So yeah, I did not have to deal with that, and a lot of my and I nearly had a similar to a 9 to 5 regular business job during my peak parenting times. I would do my entrepreneur business stuff either at work, like during off hours at work. I did a ton of it when I traveled. So I would travel instead of going out and drinking with the buddies. I'd be like John in his hotel room, like cranking out my little biz. Or when the kids went to bed. And so I really never had to be that like dad on the computer at home with the kids needing you until I got out of the Navy. came to Mexico and started doing that in on my kitchen room table, which was a disaster in progress.
Yeah, completely understand that. Yeah, I was very much not 9 to 5, and I've got one of my going away gifts when I left Japan. It says, "Adam, always TDY Labar. Thanks for visiting," because I was never there, right? So I was like always gone somewhere. I was quote unquote deployed to Thailand for a while. I had to go down to multiple different bases around the world to fix issues here or do something there, and I was like constantly doing something, and it was exhausting for me. And I sat there and looked at my wife, and she had more along that 9 to 5. We were in the same career field, but had such different existences inside that career field. It was mind-boggling to me. But I wanted to be a dad more than anything, and it was like I can't keep doing this. Like something's got to give, because I would come home and then they'd go to sleep, and I would be up typing away, underwriting on deals, trying to find my next opportunity. And on phone calls, like in Japan, I'm on the other side of the world, so I'm like in the middle of the night trying to have phone calls with my team to see what was going on with the deal that we had, and like man, oh man, it was just such a butt kicking. So I want to go something I haven't really dug into at all on this podcast. But what kind of were your deployment experiences like? Like, did you go on many like Iraq, Afghanistan type deployments, or most of yours sitting on a Navy ship type of deployments?
No, dude, I did not. I've been to Afghanistan for all of 2 weeks. I have been on a ship, spent a lot of time on carriers, in Fifth Fleet, and then I was on a minesweeper in Japan. But my deployments were non-combat deployments. We had right when I had our second boy, we were getting ready to. Our EOD command was getting ready to go to Afghanistan for a year. I was not excited about. We did a site survey in Afghanistan for our 2 week site survey. It's getting ready to go, and then I got selected for XO and got peeled off of that deployment and did my XO ride. So man, I go back to the blessed fortunate comment. I've had many friends have a much rougher stint, and I've just been super lucky.
Yeah, it's
now to be fair, a lot of those guys that does help with career progression. And you know what? Had I gone those, I may have done a little bit better in my career. But I am perfectly happy to be where I'm at right now, minus an extra 2 years away from my family.
Yep. For me, I was blessed in so much that like I was in Iraq with the Army, and I was in Afghanistan with Special Forces, and I bounced around, did a bunch of different crazy things, and that was all pre getting married. And I was blessed to say, wow, like I am thankful that I did not have to experience, because I was like right next to guys that had their dads, or that they were dads, and you're watching things happen to these guys, and you're like, I can't imagine having kids or a wife back home right now. Like I just couldn't, doing some of the things I was doing. Like I was not even like, I was on the phone with my sister once, and I bought one of those lovely Iraqi cell phones back in 2006.
Okay.
And that you have to pay a ridiculous amount of money to call back and forth on. But what else do I have to spend my money on, right? I don't invest. I don't know anything yet. I'm stupid and spend all of my paycheck. And we get rocketed while I'm on the phone with her. Like this rocket comes in and lands. And I was on a fob like the size of my notebook here in East Baghdad. And as we're getting rocketed, and I'm like, Sarah, did you hear that? She's like, no. I was like, okay, good. As I'm running into my building. But like, I couldn't imagine if that was like my wife and she did hear that, right? Because those were guys I was with. Like that was them. They're on the phone with their kids and they're like, okay, gotta go. And like, you don't know what just happened. Or you're in the middle of talking online and all of a sudden it goes black because something just happened. Everything goes black and now it's shut off. And now the person on the other side is going, what just happened? Like we were just chatting on MySpace, or we were just like aiming each other back and forth. And now all of a sudden, holy crap, they're gone. Like, I don't know what just happened. And what an experience. So I would say that I was super blessed in the fact that I was not married when I went through my combat deployments, and like what a world of difference. And that I married a woman who, when I did start to realize I was having some issues, I could chat with her, I could talk with her, and it was somebody I could open up to. And that was all before I had kids. what a blessing it was for me and my wife to be able to have a wife that I can communicate anything with. And I want to pass it over to you now. After saying that, you've been married for 19 years, so clearly you are doing something correctly. Obviously, we are all doing things incorrectly. But what would you say has been like a key to those 19 years of she's dealt with you through the military? She's now dealing with you as an entrepreneur and a dad. Like, what do you kind of liken that success to thus far?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Yeah. So we do have 19 years of, like I said, marital bliss. I don't know, man. I would say the commitment, the commitment to the relationship, the commitment to the family, the commitment that our family is bigger than our marriage is bigger than ourselves, and our family is bigger than our marriage, and our community is bigger than family. So just kind of keeping that in perspective is that, there's things I don't want to do, but I do it for the sake of the marriage. Maybe the marriage doesn't want to do it, but they do it for the sake of the community, or they do it for the sake of the family. Family might not want to do it, but we do it for the sake of the community. And so, as I say this is more aspirational than we're not always 100%. We're not always 50% on actually doing this, but I think, a key, maybe not even to my success, but a key to my drive and focus is knowing that there are bigger things out there than you, and bigger thing, and knowing what is bigger than what, and it's not you are more important than the community, and you're more important than your family, and you're more important than your marriage, and you're more important than your school. Like that's you do that, and you end up acting in such a way that is quite distasteful when people see it online on a YouTube short.
Yeah, of course.
A young person acting in such a way that they are far more important than anything else.
Yeah. So I want to dig into a couple of things there, just so I can kind of wrap my brain around it. Right. So you had mentioned like the thing the Navy says, shipmate, and then yourself. One of the themes that has happened multiple times, because the way that I usually tell people what my priorities are, and how my kids know that my priorities, my wife know my priorities, it's my God, my wife, and then my kids, right? And then everything else is below that. Something that I've been hammered at multiple times by multiple of my guests here is that I don't put myself anywhere in that list, right? And if I don't take care of myself, then how am I going to actually show up for my wife the way I need to? How am I going to actually show up for my kids the way I need to? And I was curious how, and this is one thing that I struggled with the military, if I'm completely honest, is they didn't necessarily care about the individual, right? And I don't blame them. They don't need to care about the individual. But when all you're doing is telling people that they need to care about their ship and their shipmate over themselves, then we end up with a lot of very beat up people. So I'm kind of curious how your translation went, or how you saw that in the military, and then how you translate that in society with your family to make sure that we don't end up with beat up kids as well.
Yeah, great question. I wish I had given that some thought before this.
Too bad. These are on the spot.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. So I would assert that if you've got those priorities in order, shipmate, self, community, family, self, that there is a level of responsibility that the community has over taking care of individuals. So I remember many times as an XO, many closed door decisions about people that had either come back from deployment or were like going to get married or want to have a kid, or for whatever reason they had issues and they needed some self-care, some self-love, whatever, some community love. We'll say community. They needed some love from the community. And man, I would, and those were hard decisions. And I believe that for the most part, we made the right decision by taking care of the individual when the individual needed taken care of. You know, for example, I want to do my EXO ride I want to build a community in such a way that I live in that community. I want to hire my EAs, and I want to hire my employees, and I want to work in such a way that people want to continue to do business with me. And if I work in such a way that I always put community first and I always put the person down below community, then people are not going to want to continue to do business or continue to play the game with me. Play the game in such a way that you want to keep playing the game. That's part of Simon Sinek the infinite game. And so I guess it's two different perspectives. When I look at how I'm going to deal with things external than to me, I do the God, community, family, kids. When I look at how I'm going to deal with others, I do it in terms of how I am by interacting with the man on the street, by interacting with my assistants, by interacting with people I'm doing real estate business with. I am manifesting the community that I want to be in. By picking up a hitchhiker. Like, what kind of community do I want? By helping somebody in need. What kind of community? I want to be in a community where people do that. And so I am manifesting, I'm building that community by doing those little things.
Okay. So it's less about the priority and more about the interaction between them. If what I'm hearing is correct, because it by having that interaction with your community in a way that shows the community means a lot to you, it creates the community around it. Like it helps foster the fact that the community means a lot, right? So it's not necessarily, or maybe I'm misspeaking on this, but it's not necessarily that the community is above, but it's that when we interact with the community in the way that we want the community to be interacting with us, it creates the community that we all want and need around us.
Yeah.
That sound accurate?
Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds great. That sounds accurate.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. I don't know if you can really put that when viewing yourself in the shipmate self hierarchy. I don't know if you can. Man, it's here's something I heard. Okay, all models are wrong. Every map is wrong, but some of them are useful. And I'd say the shipmate self, God, wife, kids, community, like that hierarchy is wrong. It's wrong, but it can be useful. And so I think if you look at it from a certain angle, an angle of like, what do I need to do in many situations, and you prioritize it with that shipmate self priority, then while it may not be accurate 100% of the time, which means it's wrong, it can still be useful. It can still be useful at times.
Yeah.
The map is not the environment. Fine General Patton said that.
And I love that you said that. That I think is a much better. And if I would hope that if anybody's listening to that, especially if they're in the Navy and they use the shipmate self model, that would be a great thing to continue to pass on. Like, hey, that doesn't mean that this is going to be the case 100% of the time, and it doesn't mean that God, wife, kids is going to be the case 100% of the time. Because if my kid falls down and breaks his arm, but my wife needs some help getting something off the shelf, I'm pretty sure my kids are going to move on that priority list pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
So again, it's the same thing that we used to say on a lot of people have said it, I don't remember, but we used to say it when we were deployed, whatnot as well. Like, plans are useless. Planning is priceless, right? Like the plan itself is useless. We're going to build this plan, and then the second something happens, the plan goes out the garbage, or goes out into the garbage, out the window, right? But having the fact that we planned and we went through this process and we've looked at all of this stuff and we know who we're communicating for these different things, that we don't need the plan anymore. We've done the planning. Like, the planning is what's more important than the plan itself. So, that model, the model's important to know that we can look at to keep us in check, but it doesn't mean that's always where we're at. So I like it. So let's move into your move to Mexico, right? So,
dude.
I'm intrigued by this move to Mexico. So talk to me just how, like, you kind of already alluded to it as far as wanting to go somewhere and serve for a year, and so, like, let's go across the border to Mexico. Super easy to do during COVID as opposed to flying to Europe or flying to Asia. So like, what have you been doing in that process? What was it like dragging your kids along, right? So now, I mean, your kids, again, are I think we went over 9 and 6 or something like that when you got out. So, I'm assuming that if you weren't homeschooling then, you are now. But how is all that, like, talk to me about that transition.
Yeah, so our impetus was the desire for service, and as a Christian, service is important. Serving the least of these is important, and I at least wanted to. And I'm probably saying it wrong, but get some meaningful service on my resume. I wanted to do that. It was important to do, and I knew if we go back to Oregon, I knew this was a great opportunity. This was a great opportunity between getting out of the Navy and going back to do this. Okay. So we wanted to do this service. So our kids were, they were young, so they just kind of went along, and they woke up one day and they're like, okay, we're going to Mexico. And it was kind of weird. And we found an orphanage, and we found the director of an orphanage. We're actually staying at his house, he's got a guest house that we've been renting out. And it took a while to get plugged in. As with anything, we were homeschooling our kids. We have been homeschooling our kids. We've been homeschooling them 4 days a week, and then we drive across into San Diego the 5th day into school. And man, that's a 4-hour in the car, 4+ hour in the car experience of, like, leaving at 5 a.m. and getting home, or leaving at 6 and getting home at 6 or 7. So it's a long, long stinking day. But as we stayed more and more in Mexico, the kids got more and more involved in the orphanage. Like, they had a lot of buddies at the orphanage, met a lot of kids out in the community, and they just loved it more and more. And I tell you what, I have so appreciated Mexican culture.
Mm-hmm.
By living in Mexican culture, I feel like I appreciate my culture even more, and I appreciate all the differences. Like, here's an example. Okay, a lot of Americans here, man, we're libertarians, and we want that lower tax and all that. Okay, that's great. Like, come to Mexico and you'll have dirt roads. So if we want lower taxes, no problem. Let's just accept that. Okay, we're now going to be driving on dirt roads with lower taxes. Easy. Shut down the libraries and all those things. So, like, I very clearly see the trade-offs, and not to judge higher class neighborhoods or beautiful landscaped cities versus non-landscaped cities. I'm not judging that. I'm just saying, oh wow, like, in Mexico, they made a decision, an economic decision, that they were going to prioritize different things over what we prioritize in America.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great. I tell you what, one thing they have prioritized is community here in Mexico. You go down to the beach on Saturday, and you'll see grandma and grandpa and grandkids and cousins and moms and dads and barbecues and coolers and loud music. And, like, it is a family together. It's not a bunch of people all on their cell phones. It's a family together, like, just being and they'll do it all day long. Like, what are you guys doing? But those type of things I've so appreciated, learning about just different ways to see the world, different ways to interact with the world, different ways to be a community. By my time down here in Mexico.
Yeah, I've heard that from quite a few people that live in other countries and are experiencing different things, and I've got to experience that in a different way with with being married to my wife is half Cuban, half Spaniard. So when
Okay.
we're with the Latino family, like it is very much that. Like everything is around the family. Like they go everywhere together. I mean, whether it's a party, whether it's the beach, whether it's whatever, we're going together. We're growing together. We're like aunts and uncles are taking care of nieces and nephews. We're bouncing around all over the place. Everybody's a cousin, even if they're not actually cousins. They're all family. Like the whole community is a family, and it's super cool to see, you know. And like the first time I started to meet the family on my wife's side, I was like, okay, so can you remind me who this person is? Oh, that's my cousin. I said, okay, so which one of your aunt's child is that? Well, it's not really my cousin. Like it's just that like they've been around the family so much, they're basically my cousin. And I was like, okay. Well, how about this? I was so confused, but like that was just that culture just like was wonderful to kind of to watch and see and how it all goes down. And my family is very much like that as well. Just like because we, you know, the family is super tight for us because I was a military brat, so we bounced around all over the place, and that's all you have. Like you have your family. That's the only consistent you have in your life is your family. Because you're going to move in 2 years, 3 years, and then who else is there? It's just your family. That's it. So get ready for it, you know. And the military community, you know, is obviously aware of that. But and that is one thing that I think the military does well is trying to make sure that we stay a community and we fight with each other. We help each other. We're, you know, supporting each other. I just went to my buddy's retirement. He just after 24 years. And when he was deployed, I would go over to his house and mow his lawn for his wife. His wife was pregnant with their second kid. I had one kid still in diapers, and I was like, she's definitely not going out to mow the lawn. So I'd go mow the lawn. I'd hang stuff up on the wall, and then people would be calling her, "Hey, do you know the Adams at your house? Like with your wife?" Yeah, dude, he's mowing the lawn. Like, what do you think is going on? Like, we support each other. This is what we do, right? That's just part of what the community is. You know, it makes sense. But yeah, you know, as you were talking, I'm going to have to bring up to my wife. I wouldn't mind having that discussion of, well, let's go somewhere for a year. Let's go live in a different country for a year. Rent a house. Just go see what it's like. Go hang out. What would you say were the most difficult parts about that transition for you individually, and then for you, like for your wife, maybe individually, and then for you guys as a family?
Yeah. Yeah, man. Go overseas for a year, dude. It will open your eyes. You'll appreciate your culture. You'll appreciate other cultures. It is probably one of the most foundational experiences that I've had. It was just fabulous. Do it. Okay. The most difficult thing. Yeah. So we touched on it earlier. When I got out, I really wanted financial independence, and I like that independent. I want to be independent. I want to be an independent man.
Don't have to 20 years in the military.
Oh yeah, man.
None of that crap.
I'm ready for my freedom. That's what I want. I want freedom. I want to follow my passion. Be free. And I got out and I got it. And it was awesome for I don't know, a week or so. And you know what? Dude, nobody needed me. I volunteered and I was nice to be around. And it was nice that I cleaned up and cooked, and it was nice that I volunteered at an orphanage, and it was nice that I could push kids on a swing, and I volunteered at a couple other places. But man, if your wife misses 2 days at her job, she comes back and she has a mess of emails and to-do lists. People need her. You can't just like not show up on Wednesday and people aren't going to be calling you like, "What's up, man? You know, what's up, ma'am? Get your act. I need you." When I got out, I experienced a profound loss of meaning. Nobody needed me anymore, and that was the hardest thing that I experienced during that time. Just not being needed. I thought I could, and I thought I would work on my own business, and you know, and I did, and I spent a lot of time on that. But it was at a very different level, and I experienced what Viktor Frankl wrote about in his book Man's Search for Meaning. And what he said, and I'm inaccurately summarizing it, is that, you know, for a long time people thought that it was power. Nietzsche kind of said, you know, it's power. That's what men get up for. Get up in the morning because they want power. Power's great. Or, you know, people want sex. You know, Freud. You know, men get up in the morning so they can have power and have sex. Okay, those are great. But Frankl said, no, it's not that. People get up because they need meaning. They need to be needed. That is why they get up. And I experienced that in a German concentration camp. I experienced the most profound loss of everything else, except the people that made it often were the people that were needed. Why does your grandma get up and cook dinner for you guys? She wants to be needed. She needs to be needed. She should go to Florida, hang out by the pool. Gets up and serves other people for that meaning. And that's what I lost. And that was NOFUN. That was no fun at all. Losing that perception of being needed and the meaning side. So,
man, so how did you work through that then? Like, I mean, because you just talked about the fact that sitting at that orphanage, like, still not really needed. So what have you changed that into? Like, where is it that you are needed now?
Yeah, so it was a process. It was not quick, and it's not. I don't even know if it's complete. I'm still not needed as much as I was needed in the military. A couple things is I kind of redoubled my efforts. I instead of just kind of volunteering, I started doing projects at the orphanage. Like I redid all their the Wi-Fi system to make it a firewall protected for the kids there. I got plugged in more with another ministry here in the valley and became their operations guy. So I was actually needed. I had emails and like emergencies to solve. And then I started flipping houses and became a realtor over the last year. So when you have a partner and your partner's a contractor and he's not a money guy, you're needed. Like you needed to do the money side. You're needed to run the finances. You're needed to get the insurance and work with the banks and do all that type of work. So as I'm plugging, and then the final step is we're moving back to Newburgh. We're moving back home to Newburgh so that I can re-engage in community, re-engage in that. Part of it for me is to re-engage community and and become that realtor where people need me to do good work and to do honest, high quality work to help people find their next house, buy or sell their next house. So yeah, man, I'm not out of the woods yet, but I clearly see that I've got a pathway to be needed over the next couple of years.
Awesome. Yeah, it that is one thing that getting out of the military, I've talked to a lot of folks that struggle with that identity, which I think is one of the reasons that we have the epidemic of 22 veterans a day committing suicide. Like they lose a sense of self when that uniform comes off. And I said this quite a few episodes ago, but my wife's, I think it's her it's either the current guy sitting there or the guy before, like 03 or 3-star, I believe, was chatting with her. Like, hey, what are you going to do when you're out? Like, because what you're wearing, this uniform is not you. Like, you got to know when it's your time to get out, when this is no longer what you want to wear, because does not follow you when you get out. And too many people like this, they hold on to this so much that they never get out. And then when they finally get out and retire, whether they're forced to retire or whatever, they don't have a clue what to do with themselves, because all they've ever thought about themselves is, I'm this person in a uniform. And the military, they want you to think that way in a sense, right? Because they want you to, you're putting on that uniform because you are willing to, give your life for the country, right? So, you that has to be who you are as somebody who does that. But when you get out, that's no longer you. And so how do we deal with that? So if you were to sit here and talk to, I'm going to selfishly ask this question because I want to be able to communicate this to my wife, like, how would you recommend people think about that as they're getting ready to get out? Or, like, what do you wish you would have done, a year before you got out, to help you with that transition of now that you're looking back on it going, man, I wish I would have known this, or, hey, these are the steps I would have taken.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I feel this is maybe a cop out, but I feel this is a journey like everybody has to take themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I've taken the journey, I'm reading financial independence articles, and man, there's a lot of dudes that have the exact same experience. They were a doctor, they got FI, they're like, oh yeah, I'm moving to Utah, and then life just sucked. Hardest year ever. Or they got FI, I'm going down to Costa Rica, and it's just like terrible. And so I don't know. I feel like it's just a journey you've got to take yourself. Man's Search for Meaning was certainly a very helpful book for me. I would not do it the way I did it, and that was I totally took my hand off the throttle. So I had nothing, like sabbatical, like nothing to do. Fiddled with my own small business, but basically I had nothing, no outside structure. I feel like we humans, we need to find ourselves. We need to be in an organization where we have somebody above us and we have people below us. And if you don't have somebody above you and people below you, then you're going to tend to not know what to do with yourself. So as you, your wife, who is ever listening, gets out, it won't be quite as strong as what you had in the military with a colonel above you and a bunch of lieutenants below you. But as you get out, make sure you have some sort of structure, whether that's with your church or family or friends or your new job, so that you do have some sort of structure. Won't be as much, but you have some sort of structure to move into.
Yeah. I like that. I'm gonna order that. I already got the note written down to order Man's Search for Meaning for my wife, because I've dabbled in it a tiny bit just on bits and pieces, but I need to get it specifically for her to, and I would love to listen to it myself. But so you've kind of talked.
It was a super easy book.
Okay.
I think he actually wrote it as an essay.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes in. Its first half is experience. His second half is logotherapy, and basically therapy through finding meaning.
Yeah. Okay. I love it. Yeah. I will get it after we're done recording for sure. It's happening. But we didn't actually. One thing in the introduction is I never really we didn't dig into your business at all. So tell me a little bit about your business. Yeah. You've talked a little bit about it already. Kind of alluded to a few things. Talk to me about what your business is.
Okay, so I got a couple, as most entrepreneurs do, in various stages of development. While I was in the military, I was big on reading, and I had ordered reading lists for my commands. And when the new Navy reading list would come out, new Army reading list would come out, and I had thought that I could build a business around those military reading lists and then source those books to the services. Because that was the first thing I did when I went to a command. I was like, hey, Suppo, why don't we have the latest Navy reading list? Oh, I don't know, sir. Well, let's go get it.
Mm-hmm.
So I built the website, DoD Reads. We had we provide book reviews, executive summaries, book summaries, leadership articles, and then various reading lists that you can also purchase. And my intent was to kind of fulfill that meaning, that need for meaning when I got out, and also kind of be connected to the military community.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked okay. I never lost money. Didn't make a whole lot of money on it, and it's still around, and we still make a little bit of money on the website. But what I found, interestingly enough, is what I thought I wanted, and that was solid connection to the military community. I kind of discovered after a couple of years, like, I'm a different person. I'm no longer military John. I'm no longer Commander Laney. And I like the military community, but I don't want to spend my time doing a business working with military folks all online.
Mm-hmm.
I want to have face-to-face community. And online community might work for somebody else, but it doesn't work for me. And so I made that decision about 2 years ago. started shutting down things, and now it's just kind of a shell of itself. It still sells books, but it's kind of a shell of itself. In its place, like I mentioned to you, I became a realtor, and I leveraged the experience that I had as a small-time investor and syndicator and lender during the military. I leveraged that experience, became a realtor, and started fixing and flipping homes in the Portland, Yamhill County area. So that is, yes, that's kind of where I'm at now, fulfilling that itch to be needed, that itch to have somebody above me, itch to have somebody below me, and itch to work in community.
Okay. What is your conversation with your kids about what you're doing as far as business goes, and like the conversations of, okay, well, I know we've been living here for 3 years and now we're moving back to Oregon. Like, how are those conversations going with your kids now? They're a little bit older than they were when you just like, they're okay with, okay, we're just going down to Mexico. Like, hey, dad does this type of business now as we're moving up to here. Like, what are the conversations like with them?
Two conversations. So business wise, I don't. So we'll get to that next. So the family conversations, it's tough, man, because they have integrated into Mexican community. Like they are bicultural and bilingual, and they nearly pass. They're also, my wife's Bolivian, so they look Mexican too. So they can walk down the street and pass for culturally. They're fully ingrained. So it's hard. It's going to be hard, really hard. It's going to take. It took 4 years ago. It took a couple of years for them really to feel integrated into this community, and it's going to be a tough transition for them to get integrated into our Newburgh community. Fortunately, we've got family, friends. Our church is there, so we do have at least a leg in to that community. For business, no, man, it is. No, it's. I don't know. It's really, really tough. I've tried to help them understand what I'm doing. Like, what is dad doing when he's up in his office on the computer? Is he just like goofing around watching YouTube videos? What is he doing? What does dad do? And I've tried to connect what I'm doing to our desire to have a little house in the country on a couple acres. And to, for the hours that I work, like we are getting closer to that goal. Like we need to, as a realtor, I need to sell 13 houses this year in order to get to that goal. And this work that I'm doing on my Facebook profile is helping me hopefully sell a house. I don't know. I don't know if they get it yet.
Okay.
Hopefully they will eventually, but I don't see that they've embraced what I am doing as a business yet. They get the idea of like a dad goes away to work, dad drives away and then comes back and brings money to mom, but I don't think they get the connection. Dad's on the computer and that generates money, hopefully directly or indirectly.
Yeah, I think that's one benefit about, so there's this tiny little desk right here next to me where my kids do their schoolwork, right? And they get to hear some of these conversations, they get to see some of these things, like, oh, dad is actually doing work. I know, like earlier today, my son came in and he's 9 and he looked at me I don't remember, I was doing something on, I had Cruxy open or something, looking at a deal or something. And I said, what are you doing? And it's like, oh, I'm working. And he's like, you're staring at the computer type of thing. Like, yeah, I know, but that's work, right? This is what I'm doing, And that's what they always seem to think is staring at the computer. But it opens up a lot of conversations to be able to say, hey, this is what goes on. This is where it's at, and that's where go back to all the way back to the beginning of our conversation of letting them be able to see what I'm doing has been a lot of fun, and they're still pestering me about the fact that I have not started the. I want to start a vending machine business with them, where we want to put a little vending machine, teach them about supply and demand and all the stuff. And I've got a couple vending machines already picked out, and there's some people just not responding to me on Facebook Marketplace. So if you're one of those people, please respond to me. I'm a real person. I want to buy your machines. But I love to try to have those conversations with them. So, and it's not something that I ever thought that I'd be having those conversations about, because it's so business was so new to me and saving money was so new to me when I started having kids that it was like, okay, well, now how the heck do I figure out how to teach these kids these things, and have that intentionality behind it. So, now that you are out of the military and I'm asking you these questions, what are your thoughts on like truly involving them in business or in the real estate when you get up there? Like, hey, like, let's go look at this house that I'm going to be selling and that type of stuff. Do you have any intent or thought about involving them in that side of it?
Yeah, I'd love to involve them in that. They've helped for some of our fix and flips, junking out a house, clearing out a house. I definitely want them to be involved in this. But yet I balance that with the dad that's like pushing them too hard to be involved. And I've got a lot of friends with adult kids that have tried to bring their kid into their business. Mm-hmm. Hey, why don't you be my operations guy or whatever? Like, tried to bring him in, and it hasn't worked quite as well as the dad has hoped. And so I like your comment, more is caught than taught. Basically, they observe a whole lot more than you are teaching them. I don't want to put too much hopes on teaching them and forcing them into it, but rather creating opportunities for if they want to, we're going out hanging door hangers and we're paying, whatever a month or, whatever an hour. And we'd love it if you came with us and you can make some money today or not. And there'd be a bonus if we sell a house based on it.
Yeah. And that's where I think that, that's one of the reasons I actually have this podcast is because I've talked to too many people where they say the same thing about their kids like ran away from the business. And that's another reason why I ask even about our dads, right? Because if we understand why we ran away from what our parents did or why we ran towards what our parents did, it can help us kind of direct our steps to figure out how we can make sure that our kids don't run away from what we're doing, but they run towards what we're doing. Even if it's not running towards because I really just want to do the same type of business stuff my dad does, but it's like, no, I understand what he does and I'm going to do this instead. Or I understand and I like what they're doing and I'm not running away from it. It's just I've chosen to go a different direction. Because I would much rather my kids run towards something than run away from something at all stages of life. If they're running away from something, that's way too fear-based for me, or way too, I want them running towards something that's exciting to them. And if working with me is not exciting, that's fine. I don't care. But at least it's an option. And a lot of the dads that I've talked to your point of the kids not really wanting to be involved, it is very much like, was it being pushed on them or was it not? But also like the ones that I've talked to that seems to have been successful, it was, hey, I was around it, I learned about it, I knew about it, but they told me I wasn't allowed to work in the business until I went out and did something on my own. And then once I went out and did something on my own, maybe it was working for some other company, maybe it's working for somebody. Yeah. But then once you understand you've worked for an employer, then you can come back if you want to and work in the family business. But it's not this isn't a gift to you that dad does this job. It's an opportunity for you to learn, an opportunity for you to grow, but it's not a gift that you just automatically have a seat at the table. That seems to have been a trend.
That's a great point.
But my kids, the same thing. I mean, I've brought them to a couple different projects on where I want them to go, like things I want them to see in the business. Like, hey, like these are the things that dad does when he's on a computer, right? I'm buying these things, or I'm looking at these projects so that we can flip this. The most recent one I brought them to was this memory care facility we have. Like, okay, this place is terrible, right? It needs a lot of work. It was one of those that it felt like when you walked into it that somebody brought their grandma there to die. And like, that's a sad feeling, like that is not the type of business that we want to run. And so I told my kids, I said, could you imagine when grandma gets a little bit older, us putting her in this place? No way. And that was his answer. He's like, no way, Dad. Like I couldn't do that. I said, but wait until we're done, right? Because we want to provide an amazing product for people to have wonderful care for their family that can't live at home anymore. So to me, and if they have zero desire to do that, great. But at least they know that what we're doing is making a difference in a lot of people's lives at the same time as I'm sitting in front of a computer, and they can hopefully connect those two things. But What was your, you mentioned like paying the kids a wage for like junking stuff in there. So what kind of conversations do you have with your kids about how much do you pay them? What is your thoughts behind forced child labor? No, like it's about that thought process. Is that one of the kids behind you?
Yeah, it is.
Yay! Tell them we said hi. But what are your thoughts on that? The engagement of your kids in the labor of the work.
That's great. I
love it.
Asking.
So I want to hear you.
Yeah. So right now they get half of minimum wage. Okay, which is $7 an hour down here. Half of San Diego minimum wage. Okay. However, they're starting to plus tips. They do a good job, and then that can get increased by 1.5% or so. Okay. However, they're starting to kind of wank about wanting some more money. They're not quite happy with their wages. So I said, okay, guys, I would love to pay you more. Here's how you go to get a pay raise from your boss. Find a time that he's not all scattered. Find a time he's in a good mood. And he's calm. Make sure that you've done a good job, whatever it is. Go in with your partner or whatever, and then find out, and then figure out what you're going to give him additional. Hey, I'd like a pay raise, but I can also work work one Saturday a week or one Saturday a month or whatever. Add value. Your boss would love to pay you $1 million an hour if you added that much value to the company. Yeah, like I'd love to pay my kid $100 an hour, but they just have to find something that they do that adds $100 an hour to value, $100 plus to value. That was we've been talking about this for about the last 3 weeks. They haven't yet approached me, but I am expecting and encouraged that they will hopefully before this show comes out.
That was what Thaddeus was doing in the background just now. He was coming to talk to you about getting paid more.
Maybe he was. Let's do it right live on air. And so yeah, I want them to learn those business negotiations, those business things, and I want them to learn it from me and have failures from me rather than trying to learn it from their boss, who might not be quite as understanding or gentle as their dad is.
Yeah,
but man, we constantly have talks about what I am looking for and what I am looking for in an employee, what a good employee does, and how you can become that good employee that bosses want to hire and want to tip and want to pay more and want to keep around.
Yeah, I love that. It's a need for kids to have those conversations. I need to be a little bit more intentional about that part of it. I'm very quick, and I've been catching myself doing it a lot. I'm very quick at answering questions instead of asking questions back to try to get them to think a little bit more critically about what's going on. Okay. Now, granted, my daughter, she's 1. I'm hesitant to do much more than just help her right now at every step. But the 9 and 5-year-old, it's game on. Like they need to be a little bit more independent. So I need to do a better job of asking them questions. Well, how do you think that actually works? Or how do you think you could get paid more? Or how do you think you could help me get this vending machine, right? What do you like? You want to do this, but it's all on dad right now to knock it out. So what can you do to help out with that? And I would love to get them like on phone calls, like, hey, like I'm trying to start a business. I would love to learn more about your vending machine. Like, how cool would that be for my 9-year-old to do that? Yeah, taking that note now.
Yeah, and they can do it. Your kids can do far more. Far more. One of my buddies made a comment like, treat your kids like they're 2 years older than they are. Because they can certainly do it. Okay, so this weekend I was at the Mexican rodeo in our town, little small town rodeo, and the kid's got to be 6 years old. Maybe he was 7 or 8. I don't know. Maybe it's a short 8-year-old kid. Anyway, he's out there guiding the bulls after they threw off one of the anyway. He's out there like guiding bulls, moving cattle. He's got a stick in one hand, like his hat in the other hand, like trying to get bulls going through again. I'm like, you know what? And if an 8-year-old could do that, like my kids can empty the garbage.
Yep, for sure.
They can do it just fine. If that kid knows how to get up and do hard work with hard cattle, my kids can certainly do this stuff too.
Yeah, for sure. It is one of those that I feel like we've gotten softer and softer in society, and we're just kind of like not aware of what our kids are actually capable of, for sure, and I think I do an okay job with it, but then I see some other kids do something and I'm like, nah, you got to do better, Dad. You got to do better. Like you're not doing good enough. My kid's not out there roping cattle. There's something wrong. I got to figure out what I'm missing. Right. But they really can't.
One thing that we do have a success with is reducing, like, to an extreme level, electronics. When they don't have electronics, their default when they're bored is to go to food and go to electronics. Okay, well, food, all right, whatever, get a snack. But if you don't have the default of 2 hours of playing Roblox or 2 hours electronics or whatever, 2 hours of video stuff, then you start to get creative. And like Otis has built a fort out of junk wood in the backyard, and it's a pretty decent fort that he did because he got creative. He will sometimes start to cook something. A couple days ago, he cooked up French fries. Like, he made really good French fries. Like, how many adults can make really good French fries? No, he makes really good French fries. A couple days, he made ice cream.
Nice.
He used we had a big quart of cream. He used all the cream, but it's all right. He got it for, like, found a recipe somehow and made pretty decent chocolate ice cream that I have been eating. So when you can take that, when you can get them bored and keep them there until they can figure out something to do, whatever they figure out to do will probably be pretty creative.
Yes. And when they're using that creative brain and they're working and they're firing those synapses as opposed to just staring at a screen and frying their brain, like, they're creating much more than just whatever they built. Like, they're giving their brain the ability to learn how to do these things and problem solve and figure out things on their own. And like, what the heck? Like, my son's got these. I need to figure out some more things for them to do because they love building things. They love to just, like, my boys and the two of them together would love to go out and build things. So, like, Lowe's has got, like, these little projects that they could build, so they'll go out and build things together. And too many times I've rescued them in that. But I think that, like, just buying some scrap wood, I think I need to do, and just have them go in the backyard and hammer away and see what they can create, what they can build. And I think they're going to learn a lot more than that than they're going to learn in some gym class at school. Honestly, they're gonna, like, it's gonna be a lot of fun for them and me. And yes, there's gonna be a thumb that gets smashed by a hammer, and that's okay. It's okay to have a thumb smashed by hammers. All of us have had it happen before, and it's not going to kill them. But man, oh man, will it create just a whole different way of thinking. But I love that your kids are out doing that sort of stuff. Was that what kind of conversation did you and your wife have about that? Was that very, very intentional, or was it just kind of natural, especially moving to Mexico? We've just kind of cut down on this. It was easy for us to do, and they go off and do stuff.
Yeah, some of it was intentional. I think it was also, we just got tired of every afternoon the conflict around video games and the conflict around screen time. And it's like, you know what, we're not going to deal with it. We'll do it on the weekend. We'll do it once a week. We're not going to do it 7 times a week. And so we just kind of put a shutdown on it. And I don't see a whole lot of good that comes from having a kid on, YouTube Shorts or I don't see a whole lot of good that comes out. It's kind of like junk food. Like, it may not, like, eating cake may not be bad, but when you eat cake and you don't eat your veggies, like,
eventually it's going to be bad. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's not bad once, but it's bad every day.
Yeah. So when your time is invested in screens, you miss out on your time. You miss out on the veggies. And so I think we fell into it, and I think we're probably at a much healthier spot now. And the kids, like, read. We've got my wife has a huge library of books, and they'll just pick out. It's funny. They'll just pick out a book. They'll be bored. Like Thaddeus, right? Yesterday is reading the math book. kind of reading a math book and learning about math. Good for him.
Nice.
So
Yeah. My son just asked me today, so he gets these little I forget what it's called. I should really become a sponsor of theirs because I talk about it all the time, or they should sponsor me, I should say, because I talk about it all the time. But I talk about it so much that I can't remember the name of it. What that Crunch Labs. So these little Crunch Labs thing, they come in the mail every month. My son loves them, right? He's 9 years old, loves to put them together. Rourke really wants to help. Rourke's 5, really wants to help. But Adam really only lets him hand him pieces that he puts together because Adam's very possessive. So now I got to find something for Rourke as well. Like Adam's like, no, I earned this. And he has to read because it's about $40 for one of those things. I think is what I told him. I don't remember how much it actually costs, but we'll say it's about $40. Mm-hmm. So you have to read 40 pages to be able to earn it. So now he has to read 40 pages of a book, and it's got to be a book that I authorize as pages, not one of his little brother's books. Like that doesn't count. You got to read 40 pages of a book. Now you've earned it. You could go and put that thing together. And he loves it. He'll go and just crush through those things when he has something motivating to read it. So he'll read the book, loves reading in the book, and then he'll jump right into the thing and build it, and then they play with it for a while. And he's got 15 of these things, 18 of these things running around the house at this point. The balls go flying around the house. We're building the was it Rube Goldberg machines? What are they called? Was it Rube Goldberg? Something like that. Whatever it is, where you knock one thing down, another thing goes, another thing goes, and it just trickles down to make these, the ball land in the cup type of thing. And they just love doing all of that stuff. So to me, it's so much fun to watch. And I've gotten recently in the habit of just kind of letting them watch too much TV, especially first thing in the morning. It's like, summer vacation, let them go ahead and do that. No. We got to be back to getting into a transition. So if there's ever a tear over a TV show, then I've not done my job well, and that's what hurts me. It's like when I start seeing a tear over a TV show, then we're having a problem. But so now you're getting ready to transition yet again, as we've already talked about a little bit, up to Oregon. What is that going to look like for you? What's that going to look like for your business? Now, you've talked also a few times about EAs. I'm assuming that your executive assistants, VAs, EAs, that are helping you manage all of these things. What does that look like when you're actually sitting in the market, or maybe that's not the market where you're investing in, but what is that going to look like on the transition for you personally?
Yeah, so my focus in going up to Oregon is community and building community. And that is why, as we discussed, I am deprioritizing the DoD reads. I've got an EA that has basically got it handled and can manage 80% of it. So I'm no longer trying to build that. I'm just trying to continue to generate some income from all the work that I did. Okay. And provide a product for a military person that needs the reading list. Okay, so that's DoD reads. And I can't really build community with DoD reads because it's all online. I've kind of moved from it. Okay, so how do I build? Well, I could be a used car salesman in Newburgh. Don't know anything about cars. I could be a dentist. Dentists know a lot of people. Doctors know a lot of people, but haven't gone to dental school. What else can I do? I could be a bus driver. But what do you know? I know something about real estate. Mm-hmm. So my focus, and what I keep telling myself and telling other people, is I want to build community through real estate. So as a realtor, as you well know, you need to have a lot of people that you know. You need to be connected with a lot of people. There need to be a lot of people that you know, like, and trust. And so I'm like, what do you know? Like, I'm going back to Newburgh. That I would love to both merge my business and my personal life very closely together. And while I am involved in my church activities, being involved in my church activities helps my business. Helping my business helps me be involved in my church activities. My business helps my community. My community helps my business. Going off and going to a coffee shop and meeting with somebody, like that both builds community and it helps my business. And I can do it in an honest community building way. And so that is my focus. Like I told my principal broker, hey, I don't want anything outside Yamhill County. I want Newburgh. I'm focused on Newburgh. It's not in Portland. Don't want it. I don't care how good of a deal it is. I want to focus in on my community. We'll talk about other places later, but right now it is community first, and I believe that I can use real estate to do that, and to help my community through that.
Yeah, I love that. It's you could tell that it's a passion of yours to keep that community engaged and be involved and give back in that way. And I think you're gonna, with that in mind, I think you're gonna absolutely crush it when you get up there. I think you're gonna enjoy the heck out of it. Because again, if you've already reached financial independence, and now this is about something bigger than that, I think that you're gonna find that you're gonna grow in a much faster and enjoyable way, because that's just something that it sounds like you're super passionate about. So I love hearing that. But was there anything, as we're getting close to wrapping this up, is there anything that we have not touched on that you definitely wanted to hit on while we were on this call?
Yeah, I was just looking through my notes, all my talking points that I wrote down before this. Yeah, I think we covered it. We talked. One of my big maxims is, and I heard this through Jordan, kind of a mix of Jordan Peterson and Simon Sinek with the Infinite Game, is playing the game of business in such a way that people want to keep playing it with you. And not even the game of business, playing the game of life in such a way that people want to keep doing it with you. And one thing that resonated with me is, man, when you do it that way, there are no rules. The game doesn't. It's not like a start and stop, where you start the game and then we end the game. And there's no winners and losers. It's you keep doing it as long as the two people want to play. Like, for example, my son. Okay, so we start a game of chess. We're not playing a game of chess. We're playing a game of life. And we get halfway done, and then it turns into a pillow fight, a game of a pillow fight. And then we go and, I don't know, bake cookies or whatever, and then go to the beach. And as long as I can do that, I'm not thinking who won the chess game or who lost. As long as I can do that, I'm continuing to play the game with him, because we both want to keep playing the game. And that's the same with business, man. With me and my partner, with fix and flips, we wrote out a contract, but we both know that we want to continue to work. The contract is a guideline, but we both want to continue to make it work. We both want to continue to play that game together, even if we need to go back and make modifications to that contract.
Yeah.
And so thinking through that of, hey, we can as long as we agree on it, we can change the rules at any time, because our goal is to continue that relationship, continue that infinite game. And that's been something that I have, my business decisions with, doing business with my church, or doing business with friends, or doing business with whoever, come back to that. Am I playing that infinite game where there's no winners, there's no losers, and the game never ends? Yeah,
I love that. And I'm going to have to go back and re-listen to Infinite Game, because I read that quite a while ago, and I need to go back to it again, because I love the concept, the idea, of how that engagement with the people around you, that engagement with your family, it's continuous. If we look at it as an infinite game, then this isn't just you and I aren't just having a conversation to be done with in an hour and a half. We're having a conversation that can continue on forever, because we've now built a different level of relationship. We have different understanding. We have a different idea behind what we can provide for each other and how we can help each other and what we can do. And, this could turn into hey, let's just keep this thing going. I like that. I love that a lot. And, as I'm thinking about changes in my business and what I'm doing, that's a good reminder for me to, how do we keep customers? I just had a conversation with somebody shortly before this, and he was like, well, what is your percentage of referrals for your sales? And that is a massive, you don't have to pay money for referrals. Referrals just happen naturally, right? So if I'm paying money for an ad in my business, right, so that I can have $5 per lead to come through. All right, well, I'm paying $5 for each of those leads. Okay, well, hopefully they work out, but I may have paid $5 for this lead, but if he refers 7 people over to me, now I get to spread that $5 over all 8 of those people. And the referrals are where it's at. And then that infinite game, that's what you're trying to create. That person really wants to hang out and keep going with me. Oh boy, really wants to hang out and keep going with me. They are back from the park. So if I can get him to keep going and keep referring, then that's the infinite game. And how do I keep them all engaged and keep them playing? So,
awesome,
all right,
man.
Well, does he fly planes? I don't know. Do you fly planes, John?
I do not fly planes.
He does not fly planes. Nope. You think he's going to go buy one?
No.
Oh, me. I'm going to go buy one. Yes, eventually we will be buying a plane.
Oh, not fun.
Yeah.
Well, come on down to Newberg, Oregon, and you can. We have a little. Actually, you know what? We have an airport 1 block away from my house.
He's got an airport 1 block away from his house, and he's got 2 sons. So maybe we'll have to fly up to Oregon. I mean, that's a long way since
Virginia,
we're in Florida. Oh, we're in Florida, so it's really far. Yeah, we moved to Florida, and that's a flight, but especially on a small little puddle jumper. But John, it's been absolutely awesome getting to know you, getting to chat with you a little bit. I really appreciate you coming on. If people want to reach out to you and get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, you can just shoot me an email, John Laney 3 at gmail.com.
Awesome.
Yeah,
John Laney 3 at gmail.
LinkedIn. LinkedIn's also a great spot.
Okay, we'll have all your links in the show notes and have all that set. So yeah, please reach out to John. It sounds like he's doing a bunch of stuff on the real estate side of the house. So chat with him, reach out to him. So thank you again, John, for coming on. I really appreciate it. It was a pleasure getting to chat with you. Thank you, everybody who's listening. Please like, subscribe, leave comments. I'd love to respond to some comments if people have them. But thank you all very much for listening, and thank you again, John. And we'll see everybody on the next show.
Great, thank you, Adam.